good afternoon. Welcome to the weekly livestock market update. I'm Brownfield anchor reporter Megan Grebner. With us, as always, to talk all things markets, University of Missouri, Scott Brown. Good afternoon, Scott.
Good afternoon, Megan.
I am far too close for you to not be doing this in person together. I am on vacation today, as you can see by my not typical backdrop.
Well, I'm glad you're having a good vacation day and
It is
could
a
take
little
a few
warm.
minutes out for me.
Always. There's always enough time for Scott Brown. All right. So we're going to talk monthly trade data. We're going to talk jobs and consumer demand aspect of that jobs report. But to kick things off, let's recap what happened this week in the markets.
Yeah, on the cattle side this week, Megan, live cash cattle were $1.70 lower this week. Those feeder cattle markets, we really didn't get much test this week because it was a holiday shortened week. So really no movement that to report this week. On the future side, the August live cattle futures contract was down nearly 70 cents, and the August feeder cattle contract was down $2.20 this week. On the beef side, the choice box beef price was $1.50 higher. That now puts it only about $16 below where it was a year ago at this time. So moving closer to year ago levels relative to what you and I would have talked about a few weeks ago. On the pork side, barrel and gilt prices this week were down 50 cents. The lean hog August futures contract was up more than $6 this week. And the pork cutout value gain this week up about $5.50. Strong hams and bellies this week led that pork cutout value higher.
I'm going to tell you right now, I do not anticipate any reprieve in my bacon budget anytime soon.
I think you'll continue to pay a lot for bacon, and sometimes you might notice you get a little less bacon in that package as well these days.
I'm not trying to split hairs when it comes to my bacon packages. I'm just looking for value. All right, let's talk slaughter numbers. It is the holiday shortened week, so obviously those numbers are going to be off a little bit from where we were the previous week. Let's take a look at those.
Yeah, so we look at cattle, 593,000 head this week, according to USDA. That is 43,000 head less than a week ago, but it is up 12,000 relative to what we did holiday week a year ago. On the hog side, a very short run, 1.983 million head this week, down 298,000 head from a week ago, but that's also 67,000 head more than a year ago.
How are we looking percentage comparison year over year?
Yeah, on the cattle side, so year to date, a little more than 17 million head of weekly cattle slaughter. That's 1% above year ago levels. Whereas on the hog side, 64.4 million head of hogs that have been slaughtered year to date. That's down 3.9%. We keep catching up a little bit with year ago levels when you look at the hog side of the equation.
It'll be interesting to see what happens here in the last half of 2022. Scott, the biggest report this week, monthly trade data, as we take a look at those numbers, talk to me a little bit about beef exports for May.
Yeah, so still strong when we look at the beef side of the equation. 321 million pounds of beef left the United States in May. That ends up with a total year to date of 1.471 million pounds for the first 5 months of this year. It's all been good news. When you look at May, it was up 7 million pounds relative to a year ago. Year to date's up 81 million pounds. I say this often, we can explain this primarily with one country, that being China. China's started the year strong, continues to be strong. When we talk about total exports up 7 million pounds for May, China was up 8 million pounds. That helped offset what was some weakness in places like South Korea and Japan. Just like for beef, we can actually talk about China when we talk about pork exports for May as well. Unfortunately, it's the other side of the equation. 549 million pounds of pork exports left the United States in May. That's 136 million pounds less than a year ago. Year to date, we've had 2.618 million pounds of pork leave the United States. That's down 645 million pounds. And just to give us a little perspective of that 645 million pounds, China was down 539 million pounds. So less pork to China has certainly been the story of weaker trade. Mexico continues to be strong. It was up 27 million pounds in May. That puts it up 236 million pounds year to date.
I feel like China is going to be the story, the center of much of our monthly trade data and export data, really for beef and pork through the remainder of the year.
Yeah, so I hope we actually can at some point get a little bit of growth in the China pork trade number. We're coming off of what was ASF-driven trade, as well as we've seen lockdowns because of COVID in China. So hopefully we can get a little bit of growth. We won't get back to where we were. And I'll say on the beef side, let's keep hoping for more positive news. We continue to see some strength relative to a year ago on the beef side to China. Let's hope that continues.
Let's take a look at the jobs report. As we take a look at those numbers, are we a little surprised by the report that came out this week?
Well, certainly we had more jobs than anybody, I think, thought pre-report. 372,000 jobs is what we reported today for June. That beats the pre-report estimate of 250,000 jobs pretty handily. And so I think this is a good point to remind us. All right, so there's a lot of recession discussion and good reason for that. But when you get a jobs report like today, you've got to at least tone down a little bit that recession discussion. I'm not saying it won't happen, but this is good news in terms of jobs. If you look at average hourly earnings that rose a little more than 5% relative to a year ago in June, there's where we can talk about inflation again. So perhaps we're seeing inflation in these higher earnings that we got out of the June report. But all in all, it's nice to see some positives in terms of jobs.
And I would think, too, it's also going to help us on the consumer demand side of things and continue to provide maybe the confidence to at least maintain our purchases on the domestic side of things.
Yeah, and especially at the prices we're passing to consumers today. Again, I go all good news. So more jobs, more money in pockets, helps us continue to pay those higher prices that consumers have been seeing for beef and pork, and hopefully continues the current spending trends.
Scott, that's it for us today. As we look ahead to next week, what reports will we be watching for?
Yeah, so we get USDA's monthly WASDE report next week, as well as a cut of retail prices, and finish the week with consumer sentiment.
It really would be interesting to take a look at the consumer sentiment. And I think maybe we have a conversation too, talking about Purdue. The Purdue CME Ag Economy Barometer came out this week and showed really a pretty big slide again in producer sentiment. So I think that's maybe an interesting conversation we can have next week.
That sounds great. There's always lots of volatility in these markets. We'll continue to, I think, find things to talk about for the remainder of 2022.
Maybe a thing or two each week. Scott, great to see you. We will talk to you next Friday.
Have fun at the lake.
I will do so. To have our weekly livestock market update delivered to your email box every Saturday morning, go to brownfieldagnews.com. You can also submit questions and comments there as well. And if you have submitted them, we will get to them next week. I promise you that. And if you're looking for more in-depth discussion about what's going on with corn and soybean markets, make sure to check out the weekly commodity market update with Will Robinson and Ben Brown. Have a great weekend. I'm Megan Grevner for Brownfield.